It was hard. It was hard to leave and hard to get the courage to leave. But when I did, it was very empowering and absolutely the best choice that I made. It was just time to go. It was time to embrace my own life and live life for myself.
So of course we're watching this season.
Yes.
Lot of, jaw on the floor moments.
The battle lines have been drawn, and Christine Brown just delivered the ultimate response. After Kody accused her of tearing him down to build up her relationship with David, Christine didn't just answer back. She hit him with such a powerful comeback that it made him look incredibly small in comparison. "I don't need to tear Kody down," Christine shot back during her recent interview, speaking with the assurance of someone who has truly come into her own. What he does shows everyone exactly who he is. That moment right there was absolutely perfect, the kind of response that sends shockwaves through every plural marriage family across the country. The same woman who used to walk on eggshells around Kody's temper tantrums and unreasonable expectations just handed him a dose of truth. So harsh it was absolutely devastating.
It's like, shame on you. You're the reason why they didn't work. So if he'd put more effort into them, if he had done his part of it too, I think he thinks that that you have to deserve to be loved.
What Christine just did goes way beyond a simple comeback. This is a complete lesson in dealing with someone who tries to twist the truth, while their divorce is still fresh and ongoing. But here's where Christine becomes incredibly precise with her response. She's not yelling or losing her temper. She's not wildly making accusations left and right. What she's doing is actually much more powerful. She's calmly pointing out all the proof that's been building up over the years. "I spent years getting pushed aside and constantly compared to others in that plural marriage setup," Christine shared, her voice calm and unwavering. "That's the life I walked away from, not because I wanted to hurt anybody, but because I needed to get my confidence back." This woman is speaking real truths that hit hard when you understand she's talking about how her self-esteem got slowly torn down, one small put down at a time, and people online are completely supporting this moment. The comment sections are filling up with women who see exactly what this really represents. This isn't Christine tearing down a man. This is a woman finally refusing to let a man tear her down. That distinction changes everything. And Christine just made sure everyone knows what the real story is. This whole situation isn't about getting back at someone, being mean, or trying to ruin someone's reputation on purpose. This is about a woman who's spent decades making herself smaller to fit what someone else thought she should be. And she's finally finished with that act. But let's completely change how we're looking at this situation. Because the real story of destruction isn't what Kody claims happened to him. The real story is what happened to Christine during 27 years of being constantly made to feel less important. Something that would make even an experienced counselor need extra support.
And he would always say, if you're not adorable, I can't adore you. And that's ridiculous. You can't live a life like that. You can't have a marriage like that. And that's not a partnership. That's like, I don't know, that's putting somebody on a shelf and only pulling them down when you need them and then putting them back up again. That's not a marriage, and I'm glad they're gone too.
Think about a woman who used to believe she deserved to be loved, but slowly started doubting every thought, every feeling, and every part of what made her unique. That's the real damage we're discussing here. And this didn't happen all at once like some big dramatic scene on TV. It happened one morning at a time. One conversation at a time, one comparison at a time. Christine is finally putting words to something that every woman who's been in a controlling relationship knows right away. It's that slow wearing away of who you are when someone constantly treats your emotions like they don't matter. Getting pushed aside and constantly compared in that plural marriage, she says. And those words hold the heaviness of decades spent wondering if maybe she really was too emotional, too demanding, or just too difficult to deal with. The comparison part was especially harsh in Christine's situation. Picture living in a home where your husband regularly judges how valuable you are compared to other women, where your kids watch their dad clearly pick favorites, where every family get-together turns into an unspoken contest for tiny bits of attention and approval. And here's what makes Christine's honesty so impactful. She's not asking people to feel sorry for her or trying to act like she had no power. She's just sharing the truth about a setup that was built to keep women fighting each other instead of helping one another. The plural marriage arrangement that was meant to create this wonderful, peaceful family actually built a ranking system where love became something limited that got handed out based on how well you followed the rules.
Or 3 decades. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3.
3 in like 3 years.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
No, so the culture that we used to be from,
Yeah.
if a guy lives plural marriage, loses 1 wife, that's pretty bad. But to lose 3 in 3 years, that's really bad. That's like warning signals, and that's like midlife crisis, and that's also he's meeting a soulmate and really just wants to be with her, I think.
Christine spent years trying to find her place in a situation where everything kept changing, where the expectations shifted depending on one person's feelings and what they wanted at the moment. The real damage was watching herself get smaller and quieter, hoping that maybe if she just worked harder, asked for less, and complained less, she might finally be good enough. But sometimes when things fall apart, they can actually be rebuilt into something better. That happens when a woman finally decides she's had enough. Now we get to the part where Christine shares something so specific and shocking that it shows just how weak the foundation was that Kody built his whole controlling setup on. We're talking about a man who required his wives to always wear makeup and look perfect for him, turning everyday life into a constant beauty contest where love was the reward for looking the best. Let that really hit home for every woman who's ever quickly put on lipstick before her husband walked through the door. Christine lived this way for decades, where her natural face wasn't good enough, where waking up in the morning meant immediately not meeting some unclear standard. That changed depending on what Kody felt like that day. He pushed his wives to always wear makeup and look nice for him, Christine explains. And the impact of those words is huge when you understand. She's talking about having to put on a daily show where being real was wrong. Picture never being allowed to just be yourself in your own skin, in your own house, with the person who's supposed to love you no matter what. And this is where David comes into the picture like a cool breeze on a hot day. When Christine told him about Kody's demands about appearance, David's response was quick and clear: "That's really shallow." Just 2 words that probably helped heal her more than years of counseling. Because sometimes you need someone who wasn't part of the situation to tell you what you already knew deep down. The difference is amazing when you think about it. Christine went from a man who criticized how she naturally looked to a man who calls that behavior shallow and wrong. She went from hiding behind makeup to feel worthy of love to being loved exactly as she is when she wakes up every morning. This wasn't just about being vain or caring about looks. This was about control that was disguised as having standards, manipulation that was presented as taking care of your appearance. When someone demands you change who you naturally are to get their love, they're not really loving you, they're loving their power to shape you into what they want. Christine's honesty shows how weak everything really was, built on looks and following orders instead of real connection and acceptance. Christine isn't just making unclear accusations and hoping people will believe them. She's showing the proof like a professional accountant going through tax records. And every single piece of evidence tells the same terrible story about Kody's favoritism toward Robyn and how he ignored everyone else. The proof isn't hidden or hard to understand. We're talking about patterns so clear that even people who just watch Sister Wives on TV could see them from their own living rooms. Christine has watched Kody put Robyn's needs first, her children, her comfort, and her opinions, while treating the other wives like they were just extras in their own lives. His clear favoritism of Robyn and how he neglected the other wives. Christine states simply, and she has years of specific examples to support every single word. Think about how he spent his time, where his attention went, and how family money and resources always seemed to flow in one direction, while the other wives had to fight for basic consideration. Christine watched her own children see their father choose other kids over them again and again. She saw holidays, birthdays, and important family moments get pushed aside whenever Robyn needed something in that moment. The woman has a mental collection of moments where she realized she was married to a man who had clearly picked his favorite, leaving everyone else to fight over whatever leftover attention was available. But here's what makes Christine's way of sharing this proof so powerful. She's not emotional or mean-spirited when she presents this evidence. She's calm, factual, almost resigned to the obvious truth that everyone could see. But nobody was supposed to say out loud. The evidence speaks for itself. And it all tells the same story about a man who claimed to love multiple women equally, while consistently proving the opposite through his actions. The documentation is extensive because the neglect was extensive. Christine didn't have to dig deep or twist facts to find proof of unequal treatment. It was happening right in front of everyone, recorded on television, witnessed by millions of viewers who saw the same patterns Christine was living through every day. When someone shows you who they are over and over again, eventually you stop needing more proof. Christine just turned her social media accounts into a command center, and she's fighting back against every tabloid headline that tries to paint her new marriage as having problems when she's actually sailing in the calmest waters she's ever known. The woman has had enough of fake stories, and she's shutting them down with the precision of someone who's finally learned what she's worth. "We couldn't be happier," Christine posted directly on Instagram. And those 4 words pack more punch than a 1,000-page legal document. She's not just defending her relationship with David. She's drawing a line in the digital sand and challenging anyone to cross it with made-up drama and clickbait headlines designed to tear down something beautiful. The tabloids tried their usual approach, dropping hints about marriage trouble and rocky relationships because apparently, they can't believe a woman could actually find real happiness after leaving a controlling situation. They're looking for cracks in Christine's foundation, hoping to find evidence that her new life isn't as solid as it seems. Because healthy relationships don't sell magazines like fake conflict does. But Christine isn't playing their games anymore. She's calling out false stories with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what her reality looks like behind closed doors. Calling out false stories has become Christine's new skill, and she's getting better at it with every post, every response, every refusal to let others write her story. The social media battle goes beyond just defending David, though that's certainly part of it. Christine is systematically tearing down every attempt to make her new happiness seem fragile or temporary. She's posting pictures that show real joy, sharing moments that reveal authentic connection, and responding to rumors with facts that cut through speculation like a sharp knife through soft butter. What's particularly powerful about Christine's social media strategy is how she's flipping the script on the entire situation. Instead of being defensive or just reacting, she's taking charge by sharing her truth first. She's not waiting for tabloids to publish lies and then scrambling to correct them. She's establishing her own story first and making it clear that anything different from her stated reality is pure fiction. The woman who once stayed quiet while others controlled her story is now writing her own chapters. With the authority of someone who finally understands she gets to decide what her life looks like. She's not asking permission to be happy, not apologizing for finding love that doesn't come with conditions and competitions, and certainly not allowing outside voices to create doubt about something she knows is real. Christine's social media presence has transformed from passive participation to active protection of her peace. And the message is crystal clear: she's done letting other people write her story, especially when they get the facts completely wrong. The internet has spoken and the decision is unanimous. Christine Brown isn't just winning this battle, she's inspiring a revolution of women who recognize their own stories reflected in her journey from controlled wife to empowered woman. The fan reactions flooding social media aren't just casual support. They're battle cries from a sisterhood that's been waiting for someone to show them what liberation actually looks like. Empowered and liberated are the words showing up repeatedly in comment sections across every platform. And these aren't just throwaway compliments. Women are seeing Christine's transformation and recognizing the specific freedom that comes from escaping a situation designed to keep you small. They're celebrating not just her happiness with David, but the stark contrast between who she was under Kody's control and who she's become since breaking free. The comparison is impossible to ignore when you look at Christine's journey in order. Years of footage showing her seeking approval, questioning her own instincts, and competing for scraps of attention versus the confident woman she's become, who speaks her truth without apology or hesitation. Fans are pointing out this transformation in thousands of comments, creating a digital testimony to what happens when a woman finally prioritizes her own well-being. What's particularly powerful about the fan response is how many women are sharing their own stories of recognition. They're seeing Christine's experience and identifying moments from their own lives when they accepted treatment they never should have tolerated. The comment sections have become informal support groups, where women are connecting over shared experiences of manipulation disguised as love. The sisterhood extends across multiple platforms and age groups, from Facebook groups where women in their 60s share wisdom about recognizing red flags, to TikTok videos where younger viewers analyze the psychological patterns they're witnessing in Christine's story. Group texts are buzzing with discussions about the difference between Christine's previous marriage and her current relationship, with women using her experience as a reference point for evaluating their own situations. Many fans are specifically calling out the projection they see in Kody's character destruction accusation, recognizing it as a classic manipulation tactic where the actual perpetrator accuses the victim of the very behavior they've been displaying. Women who've lived through similar dynamics are sharing their own experiences with this particular type of gaslighting, creating a collective understanding of how these patterns operate. The support goes beyond just validating Christine's choices. Fans are actively celebrating her courage to speak truth about experiences that many women recognize, but rarely see discussed so openly. They're applauding her refusal to minimize or downplay what happened, her willingness to name manipulation for what it was, and her demonstration that leaving a bad situation can lead to something genuinely better. The sisterhood awakening around Christine's story proves that her experience resonates far beyond reality television drama. It's touching something universal about women's relationships with power, control, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. Here's where we need to talk about the psychological masterpiece Kody just performed. Because accusing Christine of destroying his character is such a textbook example of projection that therapists probably use it in training seminars. The man who spent decades systematically undermining his wife's confidence is now claiming to be the victim of character destruction. And the irony is so thick you could serve it at a dinner party. Projection is what happens when someone can't acknowledge their own destructive behavior. So they flip the script and accuse their victim of doing exactly what they've been doing all along. It's like a magician's sleight of hand, except instead of making a coin disappear, they're trying to make their own accountability vanish by pointing fingers in the opposite direction. Let's examine the evidence systematically. Because this pattern didn't emerge overnight. For years, viewers watched Kody systematically dismiss Christine's feelings, minimize her concerns, and treat her opinions like background noise during family discussions. He publicly compared his wives to each other, created competitive dynamics that pitted women against each other for his attention, and established hierarchies that made some family members more valuable than others. The character destruction was happening in real time, broadcast for millions to witness, but it wasn't Christine doing the destroying. She was the one being diminished, criticized, and gradually convinced that her natural instincts and emotional needs were somehow unreasonable or excessive. The systematic erosion of her confidence wasn't accidental. It was the predictable result of living with someone who needed her to be smaller, so he could feel bigger. Now that Christine has found her voice and her footing, suddenly Kody claims she's the one doing damage to his reputation. The woman who spent years absorbing criticism and doubt is now being accused of being the aggressor, because she's finally speaking truth about her experience. This is projection at its most classic and recognizable form. What makes this projection particularly telling is how it reveals Kody's complete inability to take responsibility for the documented patterns of favoritism, neglect, and emotional manipulation that played out over decades of marriage. Instead of examining how his behavior contributed to the breakdown of his relationships, he's flipping the narrative to position himself as the wronged party. The projection becomes even more obvious when you consider the timeline. Christine didn't start destroying Kody's character until after she left and began sharing her experience. But Kody's character-destroying behavior toward Christine was documented throughout their marriage, witnessed by viewers and corroborated by other family members who lived through the same dynamics. Women who've experienced similar manipulation recognize this pattern immediately. The moment you start speaking truth about what happened, suddenly you become the villain in a story where you were actually the victim. The person who spent years making you question your own reality now accuses you of being delusional or vindictive for sharing what that reality actually looked like. Kody's accusation tells us everything we need to know about his inability to face the truth about his own behavior, and absolutely nothing about Christine's character or motivations. The difference between Christine's relationship with David and her marriage to Kody isn't just dramatic, it's like comparing a gentle sunrise to a house fire. And Christine is finally living in the warmth of something that nurtures rather than burns. She's not just talking about finding love. She's demonstrating what healthy partnership actually looks like when it's built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. With David, Christine describes a relationship where she doesn't have to perform or compete for basic consideration. There are no other wives to measure herself against, no children being favored over others, no daily auditions for attention and affection. Instead, she's experiencing what it feels like to be someone's first choice, not because she's earned it through perfect behavior, but simply because that's how genuine love operates. The honesty component stands out particularly sharply against the backdrop of her previous marriage. Christine talks about being able to express her authentic thoughts and feelings without fear of being dismissed, minimized, or compared unfavorably to someone else's reactions. She's not walking on eggshells or carefully calculating how to phrase concerns, so they'll be received without triggering defensive responses or accusations of being too sensitive. The support David provides isn't conditional on Christine maintaining a certain appearance, agreeing with his opinions, or suppressing her own needs for his comfort. When she shared Kody's shallow demands about constant makeup and perfect appearance, David's immediate response was to call out that behavior as inappropriate rather than defending it, or suggesting she should have tried harder to meet those expectations. This contrast becomes even more striking when you consider how Christine navigates conflict in her new relationship versus how she had to handle disagreements with Kody. instead of explosive reactions, silent treatments, or being made to feel guilty for having different perspectives. Christine describes productive conversations where both people's feelings matter equally. The mutual respect shows up in small daily interactions that might seem insignificant, but represent fundamental differences in how partnerships can function. David doesn't need to be the center of attention in every conversation, doesn't require constant validation of his decisions, and doesn't treat Christine's independence as a threat to his authority or masculinity. What Christine is showcasing through her relationship with David isn't just personal happiness. It's a masterclass in what becomes possible when someone loves you without trying to control or change you. She's demonstrating the peace that comes from being with someone who sees your strength as an asset, rather than a challenge, who celebrates your growth rather than feeling threatened by it. The healthy love contrast also reveals how much energy Christine was spending in her previous marriage, just trying to maintain basic stability and avoid conflict. Now that energy can be directed toward building something positive, rather than constantly managing someone else's emotional volatility or competing for basic consideration within her own family structure. Christine isn't just happy, she's showing other women what's possible when you refuse to settle for relationships that require you to shrink yourself to fit someone else's narrow definition of acceptable. Let's pause the drama for a moment and talk about the warning signs Christine escaped, because her story is packed with red flags that every woman should recognize. Not to judge anyone still living through similar situations, but to understand that these patterns have names, and naming them is the first step toward freedom. The constant appearance demands Kody placed on his wives represent what psychologists call conditional love, affection that depends on meeting specific, often shifting criteria rather than being offered freely. When someone requires you to wear makeup daily, maintain perfect appearance, or modify your natural state to earn their attention, they're not loving you. They're loving their ability to control how you present yourself to the world. The comparison game Christine endured is another massive red flag that often gets normalized in controlling relationships. Healthy partners don't regularly evaluate your worth against other people or make you compete for basic consideration. When someone consistently compares you unfavorably to others or suggests you should be more like someone else, they're systematically undermining your confidence while positioning themselves as the authority on your value. Christine's experience of being dismissed and having her feelings minimized represents what experts call emotional invalidation. This happens when someone consistently treats your emotional responses as unreasonable, too sensitive, or unworthy of consideration over time. This pattern teaches you to doubt your own instincts and question whether your feelings are legitimate, a process that can take years to recognize and recover from. The favoritism Christine witnessed within her own family structure reveals another critical warning sign. When someone treats different people in your shared space with obvious inequality, while expecting you to accept that treatment as normal or deserved, this creates an environment where everyone is competing for scraps of positive attention, rather than receiving consistent care and consideration. Financial and emotional resource allocation tells another important story. Watch how someone distributes their time, attention, and resources. If there's a clear pattern of one person or situation consistently receiving priority, while others are treated as less important, that's not accidental. It's a choice that reveals someone's actual priorities regardless of what they claim to value. The gaslighting element appears when someone consistently denies or minimizes documented patterns of behavior. When Kody claims Christine is destroying him while ignoring years of documented favoritism and dismissive treatment, he's attempting to rewrite history and make her question her own memory and experience of events. Perhaps most importantly, Christine's story illustrates how these patterns often escalate gradually. She didn't wake up one day in a clearly abusive situation. Instead, she slowly adapted to increasingly unreasonable expectations and treatment that normalized over time. The erosion happened so gradually that it became her new normal, which is why leaving often requires rebuilding your sense of what healthy relationships actually look like. Recognition is empowerment. Understanding these patterns doesn't mean you have to immediately change your entire life, but it means you can start making informed choices about what you will and won't accept moving forward. Christine's journey shows that escape is possible, healing is achievable, and something better really does exist on the other side of these controlling dynamics. Christine Brown's transformation from controlled wife to empowered woman isn't just a personal victory, it's a blueprint for what becomes possible when someone finally refuses to accept less than they deserve, and the ripple effects are reshaping the entire Brown family dynamic in ways that will be felt for generations to come. The woman who once apologized for having needs now sets boundaries without explanation or justification. She's not asking permission to be happy, not seeking validation for her choices, and certainly not allowing anyone to convince her that her current contentment is somehow damaging to people who had decades to treat her better. This isn't the same Christine who used to shrink herself to fit into someone else's narrow definition of acceptable. This is someone who's discovered her own power and has no intention of giving it up. What makes Christine's victory particularly significant is how she's handled the transition. She didn't burn bridges unnecessarily or engage in petty revenge tactics that would have given her critics ammunition to use against her. Instead, she's taken the high road while still speaking truth about her experience, demonstrating that you can be both gracious and honest, both kind and firm in your boundaries. The impact on the Brown family structure is already becoming apparent, as other family members witness what's possible when someone chooses their own well-being over maintaining dysfunctional peace. Christine's courage to leave has created space for honest conversations about patterns that were previously considered unchangeable family dynamics. Her success is proof that the system wasn't as permanent or necessary as everyone had been told. For the Brown children, Christine's transformation provides a powerful example of what healthy relationships actually look like. They're seeing their mother thrive in an environment where she's valued, supported, and treated with consistent respect. This contrast will influence their own relationship expectations and standards in ways that could break generational cycles of accepting less than they deserve. Christine's new chapter also represents a fundamental shift in how women in similar situations view their options. Her public journey from controlled to empowered has become a reference point for countless women questioning their own circumstances. She's demonstrating that leaving isn't just possible, it can lead to something genuinely better. Not just different, the victory extends beyond personal happiness into genuine healing and growth. Christine isn't just reacting against her previous situation. She's actively building something positive and sustainable. Her relationship with David isn't defined by what it's not. It's characterized by what it actually is: supportive, honest, and built on mutual respect rather than control and competition. Looking ahead, Christine's story suggests that the Brown family dynamic will continue evolving as the consequences of years of favoritism and emotional manipulation become impossible to ignore. Her success has created a new standard for what family relationships can look like when they're based on genuine care rather than hierarchical control. Christine Brown didn't just escape a difficult situation. She's rewriting the entire narrative about what's possible after polygamy, what healthy love looks like, and what happens when someone finally chooses themselves. Her new chapter victory belongs not just to her, but to every woman who's ever wondered if something better was actually possible. So here we stand, watching Christine Brown live proof that sometimes the best revenge against people who try to diminish you is simply thriving without them. Do you think her success will inspire more changes within the Brown family structure? And which part of Christine's empowerment journey resonates most strongly with you? Her boundary setting, her refusal to minimize her experience, or her demonstration of what healthy love actually looks like? Remember to tap like, hit subscribe, and keep those notifications on because the Brown family drama is far from over. A fresh video is already queued up, and something tells me the next round of polygamous family revelations will be even more eye-opening than the last.